Last time on whatever this is, I put forward my idea for how a hypothetical Dragon Ball hero shooter would function, and detailed 6 characters of the total 24 I planned out. This time I'll cover what I think the arcade modes would look like, as well as 9 more of the planned characters. I've got an idea for 2 arcade modes, but I'm sure there would be more. Arcade modes generally include deathmatch, team deathmatch, a mode with stupid rules like everyone plays the same character, or there are no ability cooldowns. I miss Total Mayhem. I don't know, maybe we'd have Lucio Ball, but we're kicking around a Super Dragon Ball instead. I'm not really interested in detailing reskinned game modes, so the 2 unique game modes I came up with are called Survival and Juggernaut, which I keep spelling wrong. Survival would either take place on a dying planet Namek, or on the Tournament Power Arena. The map would change the goal of the mode a bit, but I don't think it's worth splitting them into 2 unique game modes over. You would play as a team of 3. If you're on Namek, you must work together to find an escape ship within the 5-minute timer. There won't be enough escape ships for all the teams, meaning competition for survival will be fierce, and you must reach the escape ship with all 3 team members, meaning you'll also need to work together. Players will frantically run across the map searching for randomized escape points, fighting or sabotaging other teams to ensure your own survival. If the timer runs out, or if all the escape ships are taken, then Namek will explode and your team loses. I could see this game mode being fun, but if you get stuck with an AFK teammate or some troll throwing the game, well, GG next. But that's kind of a problem for any team game. If you find yourself in the Tournament of Power, then the best comparison I can think of would be Super Smash Bros. You wouldn't have a health bar, but instead an amount of damage taken, and hits would have a heavier knockback effect when you've taken more damage. If a player gets sent flying off the edge of the arena, they are eliminated. Once you've been eliminated, you cannot respawn and must watch your surviving teammates till the end. Victory is achieved if you have at least 1 surviving member when the timer runs out, and teams will be ranked in order of how many players survived on their team. This mode could also be repurposed into a sort of endless deathmatch mode, where instead of being eliminated and having to watch the other players, you could instead respawn. Points would be tracked based off the number of kills. You know, this is just the game mode you play while you're waiting on matchmaking. Then there's Juggernaut, not the Marvel character. This game mode would be similar to Escort from the first part, or Push the Payload. The twist here would be that the payload is a giant. The attacking team would try to escort their giant to the other end of the map to win, while the defending team would need to empty its massive health pool before that happens. The giant would attack things around it automatically, giving the attackers their advantage. They have an extra character on their side, which is a literal monster. The defender's advantage is that they don't necessarily need to worry about the enemy players. They just need to shoot the giant walking payload enough to kill it. Even someone with aim as bad as mine could hit the broadside of a great ape. Admittedly, I don't think that by itself would be enough to balance this mode. Maybe the defenders would have some extra buffs or something on the map to help them out. I'm not really too sure. The juggernauts you'd either be pushing or fighting against in this mode could include Hirudegarn or Lord Slug on a West City map, Janemba, specifically the big yellow one, not Super Janemba, in a Hell map, or Golden Grade 8 Baby on a Tuffle map. Dragon Ball has had so many giant characters, you could also throw in any number of Great Apes, Cell Max, or Piccolo Jr. I really wish I could play this mode. Something about fighting or escorting a giant just sounds so fun. And obviously they could reuse assets from this game mode to update the game and include a new arcade mode where one player gets to be the giant while a team of normal characters tries to take them down. If anything would make me think that a DBZ hero shooter could be viable besides the popularity of the IP, it's the obvious additions that can be added to provide longevity to the game. Alright, on to the characters. We'll start with a damage character. In fact, probably the most obvious damage character, Hit. He would have average health and ki, but play kinda weird. We'll need to start with his passive ability, Unstoppable Technique. Hit spawns in with his maximum 4 time counters. Sounds like a redundant name. He can spend a time counter to activate an ability while it's on cooldown, excluding his ultimate ability, of course. He will passively generate these counters over time, or can refill one immediately if he lands every strike of his basic melee combo. Hit has a 3-strike combo with a short range that does average damage. If you try to activate his basic Ki Blast, Hit will instead use his time skip to teleport forward and deliver a single punch. This attack does below average damage and consumes very little ki, but it costs a time counter to activate. This is to avoid players spamming its teleport to speed around the map. If Hit lands his punch from this attack, he will immediately regenerate the spent time counter. Hit's first ability is a defensive one which briefly stops all ki attacks in a small area around him, allowing him to sidestep them as if he had frozen time. His second ability will have him stop in place and become immobile briefly. If you're hit while this ability is active, you will vanish, then reappear, and your attacker will be stunned for a short time. His final ability will have Hit shoot a clear blast forward. If it connects with an enemy, they will be bombarded by a series of deadly attacks which do high damage. All these abilities have a very long cooldown, but they can be used while recharging as long as Hit has a time counter. They're also all supposed to mimic him using the time skip ability without breaking the game doing so. Lastly, we have his ultimate ability. It has a very slow charge time and must be fired off at close range. Hit will deliver a near instantaneous single strike with enough damage to insta-kill just about any target. Really, this was the only option for the ultimate assassin. We'll keep going with damage characters for the moment and talk about Maju, another GT rep and an important but sadly underutilized character in the franchise. Also one of the few ways to get a dark skinned character into the roster. I think we've had more green skinned characters than black ones. Then again, we've had a lot of green skin characters. Anyways, the biggest challenge with making a moveset for Maju is that he never really got to do that much. His biggest moment was probably losing to Baby, unfortunately. Difficult but not impossible. He has health like a tank and an average ki gauge. Lore-wise, it should probably be higher, but I had to nerf him a little. His passive makes up for that since it lets him auto-regenerate ki. And while his ki gauge is at 80% or higher, his attack and defense are boosted. Majub has a short-range melee combo and does average damage with a few hits. His basic ki blast has an AoE knockback effect and does slightly above average damage to a short range in front of him. It's that one shout he did in his first fight against Goku. His first ability is a sidekick capable of stunning an enemy and dealing some damage at close range. His second ability creates a tornado spiraling ki around him. This ability has a long cooldown and consumes ki to activate, and consumes more ki to keep it going. While this ability is active, Majub will be immune to any non-ultimate ki blast, gain a speed buff, and damage any enemy inside the radius of the tornado. His ultimate attack is the Chocolate Kamehameha, a quickly fired magic-infused Kamehameha which does little damage but stuns an enemy for a long time by turning them into chocolate. Next up is a support and super rep, Rosie. Maybe a bit of an odd pick, at least to include her and not Brienne, but the last time Bandai attempted one of these games, they made some odd roster choices then too. I miss you, Gundam Evolution. You introduced me to the Mahiro, which doesn't even have merchandise. I'll never get over your loss. Rosie has low health and an average ki gauge. Her passive leaves Yachina markers. Oh no, I can already hear her endless screeching again. Leaves China markers onto enemies and increases damage against targets with markers. The more markers on a target, the more damage they take. Rosie is more support than healer. She can increase the team's damage more than she keeps the team alive. Her basic combo is an endless combo, which leaves a marker onto the target for a brief time, of which a maximum 4 markers can be placed onto any single target. Her ki attack rapidly fires 5 ki blasts at the enemy. Her first ability boosts her own attack speed and damage for a short time and has a medium cooldown. Her second ability uses the Love Wand to heal an ally and also has a medium cooldown. Not every support needs to be a strong healer, but I know how hard it is to solo heal a team and how toxic people can get when they don't get healed, but they still won't play the healer. As a rule of thumb, every support should be able to heal, but their heals can be weaker if they have another way of supporting the team, like how Zenyatta or Adam Warlock are weak healers but have a powerful burst attack to support the DPS. Her third ability is a mid-range ki blast which explodes outwards into smaller ki blasts. It does below average damage and has a medium cooldown. Her ultimate fires a heart with the help of her 2 teammates, which erupts into a pink mist over the battlefield. Enemies which stand in the affected area will gain a Yachina marker and experience a slowing effect. For our fourth tank, we'll continue with the super reps and give us our first villainous tank in Zamasu. Now you might be saying, but Zamasu did nothing wrong. And yes, I know. But he was the antagonist, so we'll just call him a villain for now. For a tank, he'd have low health, but compared to other characters, it would be average or slightly above. His passive ability would be what makes up for that by giving him constant health regeneration, as a stand-in for his immortality. He would have a medium ki gauge and a short melee combo. Obviously, he would use slashing attacks, and his first attack would start with a dash to help him get into the enemy team to do average damage. His basic ki attack would be the God Splitter. Functioning like its Universe 2 incarnation, Zamasu would project a large ki spear in front of himself, which doubles as a shield. It would have its own health pool, which regenerates while not in use. And if the button is released while God Splitter is below half health, it will fire. God Splitter won't be usable again until after its health is fully restored. If you try firing a ki blast while God Splitter is unavailable, Zamasu will instead use a single normal ki blast. Zamasu's first ability is a dash, which has 2 charges. His second ability also has 2 charges. It's a slicing attack, which if timed properly, can cancel out incoming attacks. It can also do damage if it hits enemies, of course. His third ability is a grapple, where both you and the target would be unable to move for a short time. The benefit to the ability comes with his strange second passive. If an ally attack passes through Zamasu, the attack accelerates. It's a weird one, but I wanted to reference that moment when Goku Black stabbed through Zamasu and into Goku. I could see the passive either being really good or just too finicky to be useful. Depends on the team comp and how much Zamasu would be able to stand between the enemy and his teammates. His ultimate is another move taken from Xenoverse, Instant Severance. It works essentially the same way, fly forward at high speed while being invulnerable. If you hit an enemy, you'll stop and do a high power chop that does a lot of damage. We need to leave the guy who did nothing wrong behind, so we can discuss everyone's favorite pick. The guy we've all been waiting for, the world champion, Hercule! This may be shocking, but our Hercule isn't a tank character. The generous and humble champ will be a support. He even opted to have low health and no ki gauge, for the enemy's sake. His playstyle is unorthodox. His melee sees him roll forward, perform a flurry of blows, and then a single hit at the end, which actually does damage. The amount of damage is a coin flip between abysmal or high. Last time I said about Frieza that not all characters are meant to be good. Yeah. So his ki blast is his trusty 45. Like Bulma, it's just a gun, so it doesn't do much to Dragon Ball characters. You get 6 shots before you need to reload. The champ's first ability has 5 charges to it, and basically leaves mines floating around the map. It's an exquisitely wrapped present left floating over the ground. If an enemy touches it, it goes boom, but if an ally touches it, their health is restored. His second ability has a very long cooldown, and is a scaled up version of the first. Hercule throws out a giant present, which immediately explodes, damaging enemies and healing allies in the radius. Hercule gets 2 passives. The first is called Luckiest Man Alive, and he has a 10% chance to just ignore any damage he takes. I am sure no one would get upset about an RNG ability to just ignore damage. His second passive is called Somehow Part of the Crew. This ability lets you manipulate the chances for Hercule's ultimate, which has a few variations. His ult has 4 possibilities, each of which involves another character in the game. If you have that character on your team, you have a higher chance of activating the associated ultimate, with the exception of the 4th version, but I'll get to that. In the first ultimate, he bribes Android 18 to fire a wall of ki blasts in the direction he's looking. The second has Fat Boo slam against the spot you're looking at repeatedly, like the Mr. Fantastic ultimate, but you're not the one in control of the jumps. The third will have Hercule blindly fire his gun, and then Gohan flies in to strike an enemy in line of sight. The 4th version normally has the lowest odds of going off, but if your team has Android 18, Boo, Gohan, and Z Goku all on it, then the chances of the other 3 versions goes down, and the odds of the 4th version go up significantly. If you get the 4th variation of the ult, you'll switch to Goku's perspective in the air and aim the Spirit Bomb. Obviously, this is the most powerful version of the ultimate. Each version of the ultimate involves something happening to the direction you're looking at, so I don't think the RNG of which one you get would actually hurt anything, except for the enemy team hopefully. You would just be hoping to get the last one, since it would do crazy AoE damage. Now let's jump to the woman willing to take a bribe, Android 18. I feel like this is obvious, but she's a damage character. In fact, I think she would be the standard damage character. Like, every game has that one character that's just gun, the Soldier 76. Since 18 gets an infinite key gauge, she would best fit the character you play to just keep shooting. Her melee attack would be a flurry of kicks that hit the area immediately around her and knock back enemies, but it has a delay before it can be used again. Essentially, it's that emergency button if someone gets too close to you. Her ki blast is an endless barrage of alternating mid-range ki blasts. For balancing reasons, it may have a natural stopping point to break up the firing. She gets one ability, a dash into a kick. If you hit an enemy, they'll be stunned. This could also act as an emergency button to either escape or stun an enemy diving you. Her passive is a bit of fun. If she has another android on her team, or Krillin, then her ki blast and ultimate gain a small damage buff. And her ultimate is a chain Destructo Disc. Jump into the air and launch multiple Destructo Discs, which do piercing damage. For her husband, Krillin is also a damage character. I considered making him a support, but I figured there should be at least one normal human damage to play as. And who better than the strongest Earthling? Krillin gets average health and ki. He does a 5-hit melee combo which doesn't do much damage, but at the end he'll do a backflip and set an energy mine, like in the Tournament of Power. His ki blast has 2 ways it can be fired. Tapping it will shoot a regular ki blast, while holding it will shoot a beam forward. When the button is released, the beam will curve upwards before shooting down in a scatter shot of ki blasts. For his first ability, Krillin will slap his cheeks to rouse himself and gain temporary health, which will dissipate over time. His second ability is the Solar Flare. What you expect. An enemy who looks at him gets blinded and Krillin gets a small speed boost from it. His passive could be a little tricky, but it would also be a huge reason to play as Krillin. All allies in a short radius of Krillin either get a small speed boost or a small attack buff based on his current health. If he is at or above half health, Krillin gives everyone an attack buff. But if he's below half health, he gives them a speed boost. Gotta give it to Krillin. He knows when to fight and when to run away. Too bad they never listen to him. For his ultimate, he gets a single Destructo Disc, larger than the ones Android 18 throws in her ultimate. This single Destructo Disc travels across the entire map, cutting through anything and dealing enough damage to kill most enemies. Alright, we're nearing the end. Just 2 more for today. Going back to the tanks, we've got a personal favorite in Tien, who has both a large health pool and ki gauge. While the idea for making Tien a tank came from his appearance in the Cell Saga, most of his kit references his tournament fights in the original Dragon Ball. For instance, one of his abilities is the 4 Witches technique. This ability gives Tien an extra set of arms and augments his basic attacks while it's active. Normally his basic melee is a slow, close range, and short combo, which does slightly above average damage. When 4 Witches is active, however, it becomes an endless combo with a much wider range. Something that would let him easily pressure the enemy team. His basic ki blast is the Dodon Ray, slow to activate but precise. And when 4 Witches is active, Tien fires an extra Dodon Ray. His other ability uses the Multi-Man technique to send 3 clones flying forward to soak up damage. If the clones take too much damage, they'll be destroyed. But if they reach an enemy, they'll perform a melee combo, giving Tien both a defensive and offensive technique. Tien's passive is meant to be a reference to his fight with Yamcha, where he deflected his Kamehameha. Letting him deflect attacks for a passive felt like too much though. So instead, Tien takes half damage from any ki-based attack that hits him. Lastly, his ultimate, the reason I made Tien a tank, the Tri-Beam. Tien takes to the air and bombards the area below him repeatedly, just like he did against Second Form Cell. Each blast he performs chips away at his own health, but he can hit a wide area and slow enemies caught in the blast for a long time. As long as he continues the ultimate, there would be a natural stopping point, maybe 8 blasts, or until he dies. Our final character of the day is an odd 2, 3, whatever. It's Goten and Trunks, and Go Tanks. Gotenks? Strap in for this one. It'll take a minute. Let's start with his fourth ability. I don't think I've had to mention this one today, but any character with the fourth ability has the same gimmick. Even if they technically have less than 4 abilities, it has to do with how I plan things out. This ability is for switching attack styles, the way you would switch a weapon in another game. In this case, it's for switching between characters. You would start out playing Trunks, but you can switch to Goten at any point. Both characters have their own independent health bars and cooldowns. On one hand, this gives them extra survivability, but it also makes them more difficult to manage because of the possibility of switching to the injured character who still needs healed. This also becomes an issue with their fusion abilities, because obviously they would have that. When they fuse, they start with a replenished health bar, but when the fusion is undone, they would go back to whichever character initiated the fusion at whatever their health already was. So playing this duo would require some good timing and resource management, which is lore accurate at least. Need to be careful not to defuse mid-battle like Goten and Trunks would actually do. The health split stuff also covers their passive. Before we can get into the boys' abilities, I first have to explain the Gotenks. Your fusion can fail, so Gotenks, Fat Gotenks, and Skinny Gotenks are all options here. Trunks and Fat Gotenks share a short melee combo which does slightly below average damage at close range. Goten and Skinny Gotenks share a long melee combo which does average damage with slightly more range. Both the boys and the failed fusions share a Ki Blast, which is a rapid fire attack with a wide spread. Trunks and Goten both have 2 abilities. The one they share is Fusion. It's an RNG based ability where there's an even 1/3 chance between the 3 outcomes: Fat Gotenks, Skinny Gotenks, or regular Gotenks. The fusion lasts for 10 seconds and grants different buffs and possibly debuffs. Both failures have a movement debuff, but the fat variant gets a defense buff to go with it. The skinny version gets the smallest hitbox for this character, hopefully making you harder to hit. Gotenks, on the other hand, gets both a speed boost and a damage boost, making him the preferable outcome. Each version of the character has its own unique ability. For Trunks, it's his Double Buster, which fires slower than Goten's Kamehameha, but it does more damage. Obviously, that means Goten's ability is the Kamehameha, which is faster than Trunks' beam attack for less damage. The failed fusions both have dashes. Fat Gotenks' dash doesn't go as far, but has a knockback effect to anyone he collides with. For Skinny Gotenks, it's just a longer escape. Both will need to stop for a breath at the end, however. Now for the successful fusion. Gotenks gets the best of both worlds. His melee combo is a short combo with short range, which does slightly above average damage. His Ki Blast is the Die Missile Barrage, a rapid fire barrage with a degree of homing to the attacks, which can be fired continuously by consuming Ki. His active ability is Galactic Donuts, which allows him to ensnare an enemy for a long time. The ultimate ability can be used by either Trunks or Goten, but not the fusions. It is a guaranteed perfect fusion where they jump to Super Saiyan 3. This fusion plays like Gotenks with an added defense buff and lasts for 10 seconds. The ultimate charges quickly since it's the only reliable way for this duo to do damage. Alright, finally. I think I'm done for now. Just one more of these to go, and I'll have detailed my ideas for a Dragon Ball hero shooter. And it would be cool to actually get a game like this. But it's not like we're starved for good Dragon Ball games. Still waiting on Xenoverse 3 though.